Now, somebody just commented something that I felt like is worthy for me to talk about, and it's a good way to just segue into today's, stream. So the question was how, or do a recap on, coming out of prison, off of parole, and traveling to different countries. Now, as for those who don't know, I did 10 and a half years, almost 11 years in prison straight. And then I did another 6 years on parole. And then I did it. Well, so I did 11 years. Then I came home. I came home for about a year and a half. And then I went back in on a parole violation for 16 months. Then, so total, I did like 6 years of probation. So that's a good chunk of my time being subjected to, prison and like the system. And as soon as I got off of parole, it was a celebration. I was very happy to be off of parole because that was the first time I was off of paper um, since I was like, I don't know, 13. So there was a whole like 20-year period that I was on paper like consistently. You know what I'm saying? So when I got offered that my last parole stint, man, that was the first time in my adult life that I was off of paper. And that was just I was very happy about that. You know what I mean? That was freedom for me. So immediately as soon as I got off, I went to LA. You know what I mean? That was the first spot I went to. I moved there. Actually, I got a spot in downtown. Um, then I got a spot in Burbank. I was there for roughly like a year and a half type. And that was cool. And then after LA, I decided to go leave the country to travel around Asia. And at first, I didn't really know much. I didn't know, I never traveled out of the country as an adult. You know what I'm saying? I did go out the country when, no, I'm lying. When I got off of paper, as soon as I got off of parole, I went to Colombia. I went to Colombia for a little bit. So that was the first country I actually went to after parole. And then after LA, I went to Asia. The first place I hit was Thailand. That was the first spot I landed to was in Thailand. And the process was I had to get a passport and as a ex-convict, I thought that it would be a problem getting my passport, but it wasn't a problem at all. It was actually pretty easy. I filled out the paperwork, went to the post office, handled my business, and within like maybe 2 weeks or something like that, I had my passport. You know what I mean? I paid for the extradited, process to get my passport. And once I got that passport in the mail, I was so happy. Like I was like, God damn, like I finally got a passport. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, all right, cool. We gonna go to Thailand. You know what I mean? So the flight was about 20 something hours. I land we Where did we go? I think we stopped in Hong Kong. The first place we went to, I think it was Hong Kong we stopped at. And then from Hong Kong we went to Thailand. You know what I mean? The flight was about 20 something hours, very long flight, but I took what did I take? I took something. I forgot what I took, but I knocked out. So for most of that flight, I was sleeping, passed out. You know what I'm saying? And then when I got to Thailand, wow, everything was just so different. It was very different, but I got an open mind. And one thing about me is I'm used to just all my life. You know what I'm saying? All my life I've been going to different places. When I was a kid, my mom used to move me around. I probably moved like 20 times as a kid. You know what I'm saying? So I went to probably like 10, 20 public schools as a kid. You know what I mean? Elementary schools. Then when I started getting in trouble, I was in mad different juvenile detention centers, uh, um, group homes, maximum juvenile detention centers, Spofford, Harlem Valley, where else was that? Berkshire Farm, um, a bunch of stuff, Tryon, you know what I'm saying? So as a child, I was already conditioned to keep on moving. So when I get to a new place, I'm kind of like, I don't get deterred by it. I'm not like, I don't get awkward when I get to a new place. I kind of just blend in, you know what I mean? And that's from due to constantly moving throughout my life. You feel me? So when I got to Thailand, I was just chilling. You know what I mean? I was just happy to leave America. You know how many times I was in my cell just like thinking about going to another country like Thailand? I definitely thought about Thailand, and I was just very happy to be there. As soon as I got off the airplane, I went and got a massage. You know what I'm saying? I went and got a massage. Um, what else? Then I went to Thailand for a couple days. I wasn't there for too long. And then immediately right after that, probably like 3 days, 4 days, I was in Thailand for 4 days. Then I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam for about a week, you know? And then I shot a video. That's when y'all see the video that I made. If y'all haven't seen it, y'all could go back and watch the video that I made probably like last year. The first video. It was the hood in Vietnam, something like that. And then uh I got the experience of Vietnam, right? And then from there I kept on I left. I went to Philippines, I went to Africa, I went over here, I went over there. I made my trip around, went to India, I went all over the place. Then I decided after all the places I went to, I decided that Vietnam was a place that I could settle at for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I could create a base there. So that I thought that Vietnam was a great place. And the reason why I like Vietnam is this. So as a as coming up as a kid, I always heard about Vietnam. I wasn't like alive for the war, the Vietnam War. However, I was born a little bit after it. You know what I mean? So or and then I used to always hear about Vietnam. You know what I mean? I heard about Vietnam, heard about the war. It was all in the movies. It was always in books and magazines and newspapers. So I always heard about Vietnam, and Vietnam was always like it just seemed like a well, it seemed at first it seemed like a wild place, like a jungle. You know what I mean? But then as I started growing up and I started like going into the prisons and system and stuff, I started having my mind think about America in a different way. I started thinking about America like it was a bully. You know what I'm saying? And when I started seeing that, when I started viewing it like that, I looked at Vietnam as like, and at that time, I used to get bullied. I was in juvenile detention centers, and they used to try to bully. They ain't try. They bullied me all the time. I was getting bullied all the time until I figured out, how to stand up for myself. But it took me a little time. You know what I mean? So I used to look at Vietnam in that light, like, damn, Vietnam was getting bullied, but then it stood up and it not even stood up, not just stood up, it fought and it won. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of looked at that like I respect Vietnam. Like I respect that. And that was around the same time I was getting bullied and I had to learn that I got to stand up for myself. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to survive in the jungle that I was in. You know what I'm saying? So I always had this like respect for Vietnam. You know what I mean? Then I joined the gang, and the gang I was a part of was the Chinatown gang, a gang in Chinatown, and the Vietnamese was our primary enemy. You know what I mean? The Vietnamese had a gang on Canal Street called BTK, and that was short for Born to Kill, and they was wild. Like they was a different type of wild. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't give a fuck, and they was our biggest enemy. You know what I'm saying? Next to the Flying Dragons, but the BTK was very like they was very like wild and very like it was just every other gang had rules and like regulations that they had to follow, but BTK really didn't have no rules or no regulations. They just was wild. You know what I'm saying? And they actually killed two of my homies that I was there that was in my gang. You know what I mean? Two, actually three. You know what I mean? One of them I actually watched it happen. You know what I mean? I was around for that. So it made me have a great disdain for for the Vietnamese people, but at the same time, I still respected them. Anyway, um, yeah, they doing some like work in the building and shit. I guess he was trying to come in and do something, but he ain't coming in now. He gonna have to wait until after the stream. But anyway, where was I at? So yeah, I had a great disdain. Like, they was my enemies and they could kill me. I was trying to kill them. Like it was on site with them. You know what I'm saying? I definitely caused a lot of damage to some of them, and they caused a lot of damage to us. But at the same time, the level you the level of respect that I had for them was still there because they never backed down. They weren't to be bullied, and honestly, the Vietnamese, they came into Chinatown, they were being bullied. The Chinese that was already settled in Chinatown was trying to bully the Vietnamese. You know what I'm saying? They didn't let them do certain things. They wouldn't let them they wouldn't let them live properly because the Chinese was already settled in, and then here comes the Vietnamese, and then the Chinese felt like they was better than the Vietnamese. Felt like they could impose a certain type of dominance over them, and that only happened for a little bit because the Vietnamese snapped right out of that and started causing havoc. Like, yo, bro, they was doing wild shit, like like shooting broad daylight, light up a whole block. The police started getting on them. They was throwing grenades in cop cars. It was crazy. It was a crazy time, very crazy time. But I always respected the Vietnamese. So when I started traveling, I was like, I'm gonna go to Asia. Vietnam was actually one of my first destinations that came to my mind because it was like a mystical place. It was like Vietnam, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, this is the only place that stood up to big bad America and won. This is the only place that stood up to the big bad Chinatown gangs, the triads, and won. Like, Vietnamese, you know what I mean? They had my respect. You know what I'm saying? So when I came here to Vietnam, damn, I I don't know what I was gonna expect. I don't know what I was expecting. I thought I was gonna come into some wild place. Honestly, I thought it was gonna be a little wild. I thought it was gonna be, So when I got off that airplane, I was kind of tense and just preparing myself for what was gonna happen. But when I got here, it was a total different experience. You know what I mean? The people were humble. The people were except for the people at the airport when you try to get a taxi and stuff, they trying to scam you. But other than that, when I got here, I seen it was just like it was just like an eye-opening experience. You know what I mean? Just like seeing all of like a developing country, and the spirit of the Vietnamese here. Like, it was man, it just gave me a really good feeling. And as I was here for a week in Vietnam, I was just like, yeah, the women are beautiful. You feel me? The people are nice. And a lot of people say, oh, you go to Vietnam, the people are rude. They're going to try to rob you. They're going to scam you. They're going to steal from you. I actually never really experienced too much of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it don't happen, but what I'm saying is I really didn't experience it. I didn't really see any of that. You know what I mean? From what I see, the people here are very humble. They're smart. You know what I'm saying? Smart, efficient people. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's my experience out here in Vietnam and traveling around. And so the visa situation, a matter of fact, I'll talk about the visa situation another time. But yeah,